Those of you who got an invite, welcome to Nerd Prom.
No matter where in the world you are, we're all Nerds International. With the hyphen.
Alright, YouTube, it's Mr. Mean coming at you from sunny, cloudy, cold, warm Beaumont because I'm in Texas and the weather's fucked. Anywho's, happy Saturday afternoon, everybody. It's John, aka Mr. Mean, the GM du jour, as I like to say. Today's topic, we're not going to go over any specific game. We're going to be all over the place. I'm just talking about GMing. It kind of came to me this morning while I was watching my son while my wife was cooking breakfast. And it just dawned on me about the little things and the stuff that makes life easier and or what helps me be a better GM. And so I just wanted to go there. So if you were looking for a game review, it's not today. Maybe one tomorrow. I'm waiting on some books to come in the mail. Some guys have sent me some stuff. One of my Kickstarters is about to come through. I'm just waiting on stuff. I've got a ton of stuff in the library, but getting to it is a pain in the ass. So today's video du jour, I wanted to talk about the little things that I do to help make my GMing easier. And it's not how to be a better GM. Everybody's style is different. But one of the first things I wanted to say is, yes, GMing is a hard job. Yes, GMing is a lot of work. Yes, GMing is a lot of fun. And of course, in light of the last year and a half, Matthew Mercer's Critical Role has been very popular, and it's brought a lot of new people into the industry, into the genre, and into the hobby itself. Probably hobby is a better word. It's brought a lot of new people into the hobby. And even more so than in the past, we're seeing tons of players, but not enough GMs. One of the local meetups that I do here in the Beaumont area, every other day they're posting that they need more GMs for the official D&D Adventure League campaign. They've got more players and not enough GMs, and the GMs that they do have are being overworked to the point that it's not fun, and so they stop doing it. And therein is the crux, the root of the problem. GMing is a lot of work. Even if you have a pre-planned adventure and it's only a couple pages long, you still got to find time to read it. You've got to absorb it. You've got to turn it into your own thing. And then on top of that, you're doing something like Adventure League where you have a set of rules that you have to follow. It's not just open up the book and go. So it's even a little bit more stress on top of it. And then, you're playing in an adventure league, a sanctioned play arena, so to speak. So if you omit something or you make changes, it can get you banned. It can get you in trouble. And trouble is a hard word. It can get you talked to, and I've done Adventure League, and it's one of the reasons I don't like to do it is because I'm freeform. I like to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, how I want to do it, and they don't always encourage that in Pathfinder Society or D&D Adventure League. Not to say that it's not a good organization, and they're not good. They're very good organizations, and they're a lot of fun if you want to get your feet wet and you want a very structured event. That's a great way to go, especially if you've got younger people and you want to induce them to the hobby. 9 out of 10 times the people are very nice and they're willing to help new people, and so it's a good introduction to the hobby. It's just something that I don't prefer to do. I do it on a case-by-case if I'm going to an event, and like the organizers, a lot of the local conventions here in town and around the Texas area know that I'm a D&D Adventure League GM, and so they'll say, hey, one of our guys bailed, can you run the adventure? And I will say yes if it's the next day. I won't do it that day because I don't have enough time to prepare, because I don't know all the Adventure League material. You got to buy them now, or you got to get them from a store. I don't even know how the rules have changed because I haven't kept up with it. But the point being that you need time to prep. And so when you're in a structured environment like that, that's what you need. You need structure before and during and after. But one of the things that I've always prided myself on being a GM, and I got a lot of this encouragement from my good friend Brian Isakoff, is to the players are never going to do what you expect them to do. You can have the best written adventure in the world. It can be detailed down to the minutia, and everything is spelled out, and your players won't pick the bait. They won't go for it, and they'll go left when the adventure says they have to go right. And I don't like running pre-done adventures because I don't like to railroad my players. And there are ways to not railroad them and get them back on track. And that's advanced GMing, and it's a little bit common sense and stuff. A lot of times, you can even subtly hint to the players, hey, if you don't kind of go this way, it's going to lead to other things that aren't necessarily what you're trying to get done. And I guess part of it for me is if I'm running a pre-done adventure, I'm going to let my players know this is a pre-done adventure. I'm going to set the tone. I'm going to set the ambiance. I'm going to set the genre. You kind of know where you're at and what you're doing and where you need to go by the tone of the adventure. And then most players and most of my players anyway are savvy enough and they pick up on that. But I don't like railroading my players. I don't like saying, if you tell them, there's an alley with mushrooms in it, but the princess is over here and you need them to go save the princess, but the players want to go look at the mushrooms. I don't like telling my players, no, you can't go look at the mushrooms because that's not in the adventure. I don't have stats for that. You got to go over here. And there are ways to deal with that. And, you see the mushrooms. There's nothing big about them. Back over here is where you hear the princess scream. And you get your players back on track. I don't, that's not my cup of tea. If the players want to go look at the mushroom, I'm going to let them go look at the mushroom. And I'm going to pull something out of my ass. And I'm going to let them figure out. And if it's inconsequential, so be it. For me, GMing is about telling a story and my players having a good time. I'm fortunate right now that I have an awesome game group, father, son, and a wife, and then a good friend of mine who's also a GM. And we've met in the last year. I'm a hard person to GM for because I'm a glory hound. I'm a camera hound. I want to be the center of attention, and I want to do everything cool. And that's just because I've always been the GM, and I've hardly ever been a player. So anybody who can wrangle that type of personality at the table and still give them their moment of glory, but yet attend to the other players is a good GM in my book. And Joshua and John, the other John, are both good GMs. But today I wanted to kind of go over, not so much what a GM is. Everybody knows what a GM, but I wanted to iterate that there's a lot of players. I mean, there's on average 4 to 6 players for every one GM, right? That's a typical group, maybe 3 players, maybe 7 players, but there's one GM. So if you're one of those players watching this video, find a game or a genre that clicks with you. Maybe it's D&D, maybe it's Pathfinder, maybe it's Warhammer, maybe it's Zweihander, maybe it's Polaris, maybe it's Guardians, maybe it's Mutants Mass. Whatever the game is or the genre is that you like, buy the DMG or buy the core book if you don't already own it. Watch some videos on YouTube. That's a great place to get information. Watch some of my reviews. Watch anybody else's reviews. Adam Coble does a great review of Zweihander where he actually sits down and he does 2 videos. And in the second video, he actually sits down and makes a character step by step. And it's a great way to learn about the game and the world and his view on it. Adam Coble, in my opinion, is a very good GM, and I like a lot of the things he has to say, and I watch his videos. So again, the point is find something that you like and maybe get with your gaming group, talk to your current GM and say, hey, I'd like to give a hand at this GMing. And I encourage you current GMs to give your players that opportunity, to encourage them. And, players or people that want to be a GM understand you're not going to know all the rules. You're not going to know all the situations that your players are going to do. And don't think you have to. Know the core mechanic of the game. That's easy enough. And that leads me into this. These are your best friend. 5x8 cards or 3x5 cards or 4x3 cards, whatever you want, whatever you can get. These usually go on sale every year right before school season, and I go to like Office Depot and I can get them for 25 cents a pack. And these things are great because these will actually fit in your inkjet or laser printers, and you can print notes on them. If I have a shitty handwriting, so I type everything, so these will fit in my printer, and I can print my notes and everything on them. But I also keep some in my little GM pack. I've done a review on these. Go back in the vault and check them. But I've done a review on these on my GM pack, and this is another thing that's essential. I think a GM needs a GM pack, whether it be a backpack with a bunch of shit thrown in it or whatever. You need that pack. It helps keep you organized, and the big part of being a GM is actually organization. It sounds so corny, and everybody knows, oh, I got to read the adventure, or oh, I gotta be prepared to do X, Y, Z. But yet they're not prepared because they don't have a GM pack. They don't have something to help keep them organized. It can be a 3-ring binder. It can be one of those clipboard organizers. Pocket keeper, trapper keeper, whatever. Whatever works for you. This is what works. This is what works for me. And like tonight, I'm a player tonight in my D&D game. I'm a player. I'm not a GM. So I have my miniature in here. This is going to represent me on the board. I'm playing a Dragonborn monk, by the way. We're 4th level. I've got my D20. This is the one from ThinkGeek, and when it lands on the 20, it lights up. So you've seen it on Critical Role. You've seen it on a couple other games. I love this. This die rolls really well for me. The other thing is pens, pencils, dry erase markers. Keep a bunch. I like writing in ink pen. I don't like writing in pencil, so I have an ink pen in here. And these pens right here, I really like. I don't even know who makes this. I've had it so long, it's worn off. I got a bunch of refills for it, so I can keep using it, but I like it. It's small. It doesn't take up a lot of space. I've got my dry erase markers. I've got a highlighter, Mondo and Porta. If you own your books, you didn't borrow them from your current GM, or you're not checking them out from the library, because a couple libraries do have game books in the larger metropolitan centers. But if you own the book or the PDF or whatever, highlighters are great. If you come across a rule, and I do this a lot, man, I'm not going to remember that rule. That's a situational thing that I'm not going to remember. I'll put it, or I'll cut and paste it out of a PDF if I own the PDF, or I'll handwrite it or type it on a 4x8, 5x8 card, and I'll highlight it. And that tells me, hey, that's important. I need to remember that. Cheat sheets. This is for Dragon Age. These are initiative cards for our game, and I run the Dragon Age game, so these are very helpful to me. Some people use a dry erase board and write everybody's name down, whatever works. And then, of course, my 5x8 cards. And then my dice. I got a nice big bag of dice. That's in my little GM pack, and I adjust it for every game, depending on the game I'm playing. Tonight I'm playing D&D, so I don't need all my GM stuff in there. But, the old saying goes, you learn by doing. A dice box. I could use the box. I could use my GM/player box to roll dice in, but it's a little too big. So I have one of these. I picked this up at a convention for like $20. I put some felt in it. It wasn't felt lined at the time. It's just MDF that they painted and put some images in. And either way, I really like it. So just a little dice box. Handy to have. Like I said, pick it up anywhere. So I've got my GM box or player box. If you're a player, you've probably got one, or something to that effect. These are the little things that I find helpful when I'm running a game, because it keeps me organized, and I like organization. As a player, I always do, whenever I play in a game, I make a binder, and I usually find a cool image for my character. This is my Dragonborn monk in our D&D game, and then I have stuff in there. Now, I pulled it all out and put it on a clipboard because I don't need this binder in my backpack tonight. I'm going to be using D&D Beyond. I'm going to give it a try and see how it works, which leads me to my next GM resource, which is also a player resource. Your laptop. This is a old Lenovo 2 Yoga. A Lenovo Yoga 11. And it can spin around. The nice thing is it can go into portrait mode, so I can put it up like that, and I can set it on the table next to me, or I can use it as my GM screen. But any old laptop will do. Chromebook, a tablet, your cell phone, whatever works for you. I find this works great because it's not too big. It's got a decent battery life on it. I turn Wi-Fi off so the battery lasts even longer if I'm not sitting somewhere where I have access to a power outlet. But this laptop in particular holds a pretty decent charge, so it works for me. Tonight I'll be using it as a player. I just bought a cool skin off the internet. I'm a Green Lantern fan, so this laptop. I'm in IT. I was lucky enough to work was going to throw this away because it was all, as you can see, it's kind of scratched up there, and the cover looked even worse. Hence why I put this screen on it. So that's a resource. You can keep all your PDF books on here, so you don't have to lug around a ton of books if you're playing a game like D&D that uses a lot of books, or Pathfinder, or Palladium, Rifts, or anything like that has a ton of books. You can get most of them in PDF legally, of course, and you can put them on here and you can roll. So great asset to have at the table. Does require power, so take that into consideration when you're gaming. You may be gaming somewhere where you don't have access to a power outlet, in which case now your GM screen, aka your laptop, is useless. It's a paperweight because you ran out of power. So that depends. So that's kind of some of the tools and the things that I use to help me GM. Another big one, miniatures. This is always a hot topic. To not use miniatures or to use miniatures. Totally your preference. I think if you're a new GM and you're uncomfortable or you're unsure of your GMing talents, wait on the miniatures. D&D is a theater of the mind, or gaming in general is a theater of the mind, and most of your players will get it. Now, if you come from a group that's always been using miniatures, you may be comfortable enough to roll into it, and by all means, don't be shy. Ask the players and the other GM or your normal to help you out. You'll be surprised because the GM, we like to play too. I prefer to be the GM, but I do like to play. If I have a good GM, I like to play. You won't know if you're a good GM if you don't try it. And like I said, we're in this gaming renaissance right now. It's a golden age of gaming. We have a plethora of different types of games out on the market right now. Whatever genre you're into, you can find a game for it, or pretty close to it, or there's a generic game that you can mold into the genre that you want, if there's not one specifically out there that you like. And we always need more GMs. And so, if someone can, if you have that inkling, that itch that, man, I think I can do this, or maybe if you don't, just try it. Work with your current GM and say, hey, I'm thinking about GMing, you want to help me? And I'll be shocked if your GM says, no, I'm the GM, I don't want to help. They want to play too. And it's nice to give them a break because it gives them a chance to get their creative juices flowing again. I give much kudos to guys like Adam Cobell and Matt Mercer and Itmay JP and those guys who run games every week. Now, granted, it's kind of their job. They're YouTube content providers, and their paycheck depends on how much content they put out and people, subscribe to them and all that kind of stuff. So that's they're in a different league. Are they better GMs than you or I could be? No, not necessarily. They have a lot of practice. And the only way you'll get better is this is definitely a memory muscle thing. The more you do it, the better you will be. You'll learn what your players like. I run a lot of games at conventions. I run a lot of different games because I have what I like to term as gamer ADD. I like to run different games. I don't like to play the same thing week after week after week. It just, to me, it gets boring. I've got Guardians right here. It's a superhero RPG, and laying underneath it, I've got Zweihander. And I'm prepping adventures for both of these because I'm going to run them both here shortly. And I'm lucky enough to have a gaming group that is okay with that. They like that. As long as I show up with pre-generated characters, they don't care what we play. And we tend to play every weekend. So it's nice. I'm really enjoying that part of it. And if you're lucky enough to have a game group that meets, bi-weekly or every week or once a month, whatever, the more time in between the games you have, the more time you have to prep. And that can be fun, and it can also be intimidating. Whenever you look at something that you do for fun as work, it becomes less fun, or it becomes no fun at all. And so It's very easy to get in the mindset of, oh, I got to prep for this weekend's game. Oh, try to avoid that. Your own mental fatigue, your own mental monster will beat you down. I look at it as, ooh, I've got to prep for this week's game. I've got this, and this in mind, and I'm ready to do this, and I want to run this game, and I'll go out and I'll try to watch videos on said game, to get ideas of how they run it, and it'll help solidify some of the rules for me. Not everybody's like that. I have a job. I'm a systems administrator, so I sit at my desk all day long and I watch a screen. So I open up Critical Role or, Swan Song or whatever the game of choice that I'm trying to watch at the time, and I can watch it, and I can, and if I miss something, I can go back and watch it again or something like that. So I'm lucky in that aspect. Not everybody can do that and understand that. If you're a truck driver, you don't want to be trying to look at a screen while you're supposed to be driving. So find what works for you. Access the resources around you, just like with anything else, especially if you know a good DM. If your group has a good DM and you like him or her, get with them and say, hey, I'm thinking I want to start GMing. I know we're playing D&D, but I'm really into supers, and I saw Mr. Mean's review of Guardians and I picked it up for $10 and I want to give it a try. And but go that extra step. Make pre-generated characters. You know your players. You've been gaming with them for a while, or at least long enough that you're comfortable hanging out with around them. So make a character that you think they might like, because making 4, 5, 6, 3 characters or whatever is going to help solidify the creation rules for you, so that when someone asks you a question, you'll be able to answer it like that because you just made 6 characters or 4 characters. And then do a couple mock combats before your game session. Know how the gaming pace works, how the mechanics work. They may say to do initiative this way, but maybe you like doing it another way because you're more comfortable with that type of math. Maybe they say get a dry erase board and put everybody's name up there. You may prefer to use index cards. It all depends. You got to find your flow. But don't get discouraged. You're gonna mess things up. You're gonna get things wrong in the heat of combat or in the heat of an intense, dialogue between you and one of the other players. You're gonna get things wrong. It's okay. You can always, first of all, players are some of the most forgiving, nicest people you'll ever meet, which is part of why we do this hobby, because it is a very social hobby. The other thing is keep a notepad with you, whether you keep like Post-it notes open on your laptop, or if you're using a Mac, you got any kind of notes feature, whether it be a 3x5 card, a Post-it note, or on your laptop or your computer. Keep notes. If somebody says something that if somebody says something that everybody else goes ooh, that's probably something you want to remember. If they say something that makes you go ooh as the GM, make a note of it, because obviously it was enough to spark you. When you go back and you read those notes, it'll spark the creative juices, and you'll think of things that go around that. Like one of my players was a retired spy for the military, and he said something about being a spy or something in our game, and I made a note of it. And like 2 sessions later, I brought it up, and he was like, "What? I don't, But he ran with it, and he was like, oh yeah, and he went with it, and it made for a great storytelling session, because players like nothing better than to know that their GM is paying attention, or their DM, or their saga master, storyteller, whatever you want to call yourself. Players love it when the agency that they provide has a foothold and means something in their universe. One of the things that I stole from Dungeon World, and I use in all my games, especially at convention games, is I will take the first hour of the game and I will ask each player, once they've had a moment to look over their character and kind of get the idea of what they're playing, and this doesn't matter if it's D&D, if it's Pathfinder, if it's Guardians, if it's Zweihander. One thing about the world in your mind that's true, and I'll make a note of it, and I'll try to work that into the session. And it works great with open-ended games like Fantasy Age, GURPS, Dungeon World, games where there's defined world building in it. It works good in all of those. So it's nice to you'll find that as you play other games, or even if you play the same game for 20 years, you'll find that you'll draw on past experiences to make this experience better. And that's awesome. And your players will remember it. One of the best skills that I've seen in a GM is from Matthew Mercer and Adam Cobell as well. And I'm trying real hard to do it, is I don't partake in the party, how do I put it? I don't partake in the party jokes. So if my players are sitting around the table and, one of the players makes a Monty Python reference, because if you're playing a game of D&D or any fantasy type role-playing game, inevitably somebody's going to make a Monty Python in the Quest for the Holy Grail reference. And so what's nice about that is I try not to get in with that. I try not to make a joke about it. I let them have their moment. I let them laugh about it, but I stay in character, or I stay in the scene. And if you watch Critical Role, watch Matthew Mercer. He is the master of it. And I think that is a extremely good talent of a good GM, is to, you can have a laughter, you can smirk, but don't egg it on. Because if you stay in control, if you stay focused on the situation at hand, then the players will come back real quick. If they see you're not laughing, it's almost like a killjoy moment, but it's okay in that instance because you're there to play a game. You're not there to crack Monty Python jokes. If you want to do that, go be a comedian. That being said, you want your players to have fun, and if they're cracking jokes, they're having fun, but let them have the fun. You keep the flavor of the game. You keep moving forward. It's one of the terms they use in Dungeon World and several other games, failing forward. And that's what I call a failing forward. Even though they're making jokes and I'm not participating in it, we're still moving the story forward. We're still moving the situation forward because they realize, oh, okay, that was funny. We're still in the game. Let's get cracking. And I like that. I want my players to have fun, but I also want them to know that, we're here for a reason. And of course, part of it is camaraderie and friendship and hanging out with our friends and people we like to be around. But we also want to tell a story. We also want to, have some combat. We want to have some social interaction within the game. So by not partaking in their tomfoolery, and I don't mean that in a bad way, you're setting the expectation and you bring them back into the game. And then, after the game, boy, dude, when you said that was so funny. I took everything I had to keep a straight face. There's nothing wrong with that. And then the players know, oh, he's not being a dick. And your players will pick up on it real quick that you're keeping the story going. You're not trying to be a spoil sport. And it works out really well. I've done it once or twice in my sessions now, and it's I really enjoy it. And I'm trying to do it more even as a player, because I'm the one that cracks a lot of jokes. And I'm trying not to do that because it is disruptive to the GM. And I know that because it makes me upset or takes me out of my mood when I start cracking up and clowning with the other players, about a joke they made in game or out of game. You want to keep the story flowing. You want to keep everything cohesive, and you want to have fun. Some of the best role-playing sessions I've ever had was with Vampire the Masquerade. Very serious games, very deep role-playing. And one session I remember, we played for 4, maybe 5 hours, no combat the whole night. Not one stitch of combat. It was all social interaction, all very serious, it was basically acting at an improv level, and everybody walked away and was like, dude, that was the best session ever. And we didn't throw one combat dice. We made a couple skill checks, but for the most part, it was all storytelling back and forth between the player and the GM, and I was the GM. It was a werewolf game, and it was one of the best sessions I ever had. Another one was Hellfrost by Paul Wade Wiggy for Savage Worlds, one of my favorite settings next to Shintar. It's a very grim, cold, Viking-themed kind of game with evil dragons running amok, and the world's getting colder and colder and colder, that kind of thing. And we had a good 3-hour session with 6 players and me as the GM. We didn't have one lick of combat. It was all emotional dialogue going back and forth, and it was at a convention, and it was a blast. Everybody had so much fun. So those are the moments when you go, God, I love being a GM. You're going to have those sessions where you can't remember a rule, where every dice roll, fucks you, and the players are being unruly. You know what? Roll with it. That's going to be one of those sessions where you just have to say fuck it, and you roll with it, and you have fun. Because GMing is rewarding. It is fun. It is hard. It is work, but it's only as hard and as much work as you make it. If you enjoy doing it, then you're going to have fun with it, and you won't deem it as work. And I guess, it's like a friend of mine's a mechanic. He loves working on cars. To him, he's a mechanic by trade, and in his off time, he works on cars. It's not work to him. That's something he enjoys doing, so it's no big deal. So it's kind of what I'm trying to get at. So, have your tools that help you do what you need to do, that make your life easier. Try different things. Maybe poker cards, index cards cut to the size of poker cards, and you put a rubber band around them, and, those work for you. Whatever. Just do your thing, and you'll be surprised. You'll come to look, you'll have that excitement just like you do when you're a player. You'll have that excitement as a GM. Ooh, tonight's game night. I'm going to do this and this and this. And, oh, man, we're going to tell a great story. And you'll be surprised. It becomes infectious. When you come to the table with a positive attitude, your players will have a positive attitude, even if they're in a bad mood. It's happiness and having fun is contagious. And so that's part of why we do this, is we want to escape our reality, and we want to have fun. And so role-playing games is a great way to do that. So that's tonight's video. That's all I wanted to go over. I know I rambled kind of fast. My dinner's ready. I got to go eat. But I got to get ready for my game, my D&D game tonight. As I said, I'm playing. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Tell me your tips and your tricks. Tell me, have you tried any of this stuff? Does it work for you? What doesn't work for you? What do you do before your game sessions? What do you do after your game sessions? What kind of technology do you use? I mean, I know some guys have, LCD screens and stuff that they mount in their table and they go gung-ho. If I had the room, I would do that, because I love using digital maps. But I don't have the room for that right now. So just wanted to give a quick shout out and do a video for today, because I may try to do a review tomorrow if I can find something in the archive. But I just wanted to toss that out there after watching Adam Cobell talk with Daniel Fox about Zweihander. It brought up a lot of things for me. And like I said, if you've never GM'd, give it a try. You might find out that you have a lot of fun. So as usual, peace and hair grease. And remember, Mr. Mean always says, be nice.